Uh, yeah. Good evening and Assalamualaikum from Impar. Thank you for being here this evening. Today, we are very pleased to welcome our esteemed guests. We have a very special guest here with us. The keynote speakers are Angela, can you please zoom in? Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah Sahab, who is a former VC, ANU, and also steering committee member.
Sound is not good. Sound is not good.
Okay.
You're not audible. You're not clear.
Hello.
Yes, Ashwin.
Yes, Assalamualaikum, sir. Is it audible?
But
It's much better.
better than earlier.
Now it's okay, I think. Today is National Education Day, and we are going to start with Maulana Abul Kalam Azad and his holistic approach to educational empowerment of Indian Muslims. He was the first education minister, and he was also a keynote member in drafting the constitution. Today we have among us keynote speakers, Dr. Khwaja Shahid, who was a former registrar at Jamia Millia Islamia. Angela, can you help me out with Khwaja Sahab?
Yes.
Khwaja Sahab, a very warm welcome to you from Impar.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. My pleasure, Angela.
Okay. And we have a very special guest tonight, Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah. And I'm just through his book, The Sarkari Musalman, just reading his book. And he was the former Vice Chancellor of our college, Aligarh Muslim University. And the best thing was that he is a retired Lieutenant General in Army. So let's welcome Mr. Zamiruddin Shah. And to our good luck, he's a steering committee member at Impar. Angela, is he there?
Yes, he's very much sure.
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, sir, for being here. We would love to hear your comments on National Education Day. Then we have a very special guest with us, who is a Padma Shri, Akhtarul Wasi Sahab, who's an author, and he's in academics and a member at Impar. Angela?
Yes, sir is here.
Yeah, please connect him. Akhtarul Wasi Sahab, a very warm welcome.
Akhtarul Wase, but not Wasi. Akhtarul Wase.
Wase.
Please pronounce his name correctly.
Akhtarul Wase.
Professor Akhtarul Wase. Professor Akhtarul Wase.
Okay, fine. Professor Akhtarul Wase. Then we have Dr. S.M. Ilyas, who is a dean at ISAB and a former VC at NDUAT, New Delhi. Today, they all will be sharing their expert opinion on National Education Day. And I ask you all that you should give me full attention. Please help me out in welcoming all our esteemed guests today. So starting off with Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah, my question, please start off. I mean, we need 5 to 10 minutes. Please explain us more about what is National Education Day and what does modern education means to us.
Okay. Thank you very much,
Ashi.
Ashi.
Yes, sir.
Firstly, Assalamu alaikum and Jai Hind. Greetings to you.
Jai Hind, sir. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Greetings to all of you on National Education Day. Quite aptly, the birth anniversary of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. If you want to know his full name, it was Abul Kalam Ghulam Mohiuddin Ahmad bin Khairuddin Al Hussaini Azad. Azad was his takhallus,
Yes.
his pet name, which
Yes.
he adopted. to show
Yes,
that
yes.
we wanted Azadi from the British. And I think it was very, very
Yes.
apt takallus which he adopted. Now, he was not only a scholar, but he was an Islamic theologian. I mean, he wrote intensively on Islam, other religions. He was an independence activist. He spent many years in jail
Yes, sir.
cause of freedom. And the most important thing is that he strived very, very hard for Hindu-Muslim unity.
Okay.
Despite the fact that when the British partitioned Bengal and the sentiments of most Muslims was for separate electorates and separation, Maulana Azad vehemently opposed uh, separate electorates for Muslims and for the partition of Bengal. Of course, uh, and of course he joined the spearheaded the Khilafat movement. He felt
Yes,
that
sir.
the British were unfair after occupying Turkey to abolish the post of the Khalifa, who was recognized by the Muslims as the ultimate authority. I mean, he was virtually like the Pope.
Okay.
So he opposed that.
Okay.
And he was appointed the first education minister by the
Yes,
Prime
sir.
Minister, Pandit Nehru. Before that, um, Azad, uh, Abul Kalam Azad,
Yes, sir.
was the founder, I would say almost a founder member of Jama Millia Islamia.
Okay.
It was founded in Aligarh, and it was in competition to Aligarh Muslim University because the people supporting Jamia felt that Aligarh Muslim University was far too dependent on the British. Whatever they were giving, they were far too dependent. So they established the Jamia Millia Islamia. You all know that
Yes.
it is now one of the leading universities of the country, and we're all very, very proud of the institution,
Yes, sir.
of which Maulana Azad was the founder. And of course, he was awarded the Bharat Ratna in 1992. I think very well deserved. Very well deserved. Now, India owes the modern education structure of the IITs and IIMs laid by Maulana Azad. If he had, at that time, it was the education was more, it was a state subject. The center only looked after central education institutions and
Okay.
schools for the children of government employees. That means the central schools.
Yes, sir.
Of course, now it's on the concurrent list. So there's whatever the education ministry, it was renamed HRD, now renamed back to the Ministry of Education. I think quite rightly, it has reverted back. I mean, there's a lot in the name. It is really, it should be the Ministry of Education. So Maulana Azad was well versed in Urdu, Persian, Arabic, English, self-taught. So it's a lesson for all of you.
Okay.
I mean,
It's English self-taught.
he was self-taught, although he has
Okay.
received formal education in Arabic. And of course, his background, you all are aware that
Yes, sir.
his father was a Bengali migrant from
Yes.
Calcutta of Afghan descent who had migrated to Mecca, married a Saudi woman. So Maulana Azad's mother was an Arab. His father was a Bengali Muslim of Afghan descent. So the biggest lesson we've got to learn from Maulana Azad's life was there is no place in India for communalism. The key to progress is education, and Maulana Azad constantly strived. In fact, I think his 12 years as the Minister of Education, the foundation of India's educational progress were laid during his tenure as the Education Minister. Also, his contribution towards the freedom struggle is well known. He took part in all the satyagrahas. He wrote widely. He was a journalist of renown, an academician of renown, and most of his writings were for Swaraj, for independence, and for the what you call self-sufficiency. He was very much part of the Quit India movement and the burning
Yes.
of imported goods. So I think that now his teachings and his endowment and what he left behind is very, very important for Indian Muslims. Our future, as I've been stressing everywhere, is to follow the lessons given by Abul Kalam Azad. That means the way forward is education, enlightenment, inclusiveness. I mean, we should not have ghettoized education, not at all. I'm very much against it. And it surprises a lot of people when I tell them that our two leading universities or three leading universities, that means AMU, Jamia, and Jamia Hamdard, the admissions are not on religious lines at all. They are through open competitive examinations. And they're quite surprised.
Yes,
They
sir.
feel that these universities are solely for Muslims. No, that is not the way to go forward. We need secular education. Our children have got to learn from the competitive zeal of the other communities. That is something which during my tenure in Aligarh, I found lacking. We don't concentrate on competitiveness. We leave it to ho jayega. No. The Prophet told us, have faith in God. That's very, very important. But another rider he put, tie your camel first. That means you must strive to progress and achieve. Let me tell you that for an Indian Muslim, if you are exceptionally good, nobody is going to discriminate against you. If you are not, I'm afraid. If you are equal to everybody else, somebody else will get it. So you got to strive, you got to follow the path of Abul Kalam Azad and be outstanding in academics, be outstanding in whatever job is entrusted to you. And of course, most important is Hindu-Muslim amity and peace. Ours is a secular country. There are equal opportunities for everybody. So make use of this great facility which is provided to you and the foundations of which were laid by Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. Thank you very much. God bless.
Sir, here I would like to interrupt you that Mr. Abul Kalam Azad, what were his views on modern education when madrasas were teaching very traditionally at that time? And I've heard also that during your tenure as a vice chancellor, you had introduced a bridge course in AMU for the madrasa student.
Yes.
So can you please explain, because in the current scenario, when the Muslims are under dilemma, what to do, like madrasa children, they don't know how to go about all these things.
Okay.
So please,
These are things which I've repeated everywhere. First is we need good quality schools for our children.
Yes, sir.
We have to depend on Christian missionaries.
Okay.
Through the Sir Syed Education Foundation.
Yes, sir.
I've covered it earlier. But what is most important, and I've also been saying, that the madrasas have rendered great service in the cause of Muslim education of Muslims. Unfortunately, they did not move with the time. They should have been like the madrasas of old. The madrasas of old were educational institutions where religion was taught, but so were other subjects. So were other subjects like history, geography, maths, everything else. We need modernization of the madrasas, and we
Okay.
did it. We had this experiment in AMU, where we established the 1-year bridge course, and
Okay.
we gave a concentrated dose of English, computers, and social sciences. And let me
Okay.
tell you that in 1 year, the madaris who had
Okay.
not even known ABCD learned
Yes.
how to speak English tolerably well.
Wow, that's criminal. That's
Uh,
incredible, sir, and we need to applaud it.
No,
More
you
people.
know, these children of the pass out from the madrasas have immense capability. They can learn anything very, very
Yes, sir.
fast.
Yes, sir. You're
But
absolutely true.
the problem is we have not shown them the way. And they learned computers. By the time they had finished 1 year, they were doing everything online. I used to joke in AMU that that मादरी जबान हमारी
जी
उर्दू है, किसी
जी
की
जी
हिंदी है, कोई भी हो
जी
सकते हैं फारसी, मगर
जी
रोजी रोटी की जबान अंग्रेजी है. I am again telling you, if you want to climb upwards,
Yes, sir.
please be proficient in this language. This is the language of the world, and you cannot go uphill unless you have learned.
Truly, sir.
But
Very
I
well said.
changed this. I changed it later. In my last year, I said, all right, Madri Zaban, there's a Urdu.
Yes.
रोजी रोटी की जबान अंग्रेजी. मैंने कहा गलत.
Angrezi.
रोजी रोटी की जबान कंप्यूटर है.
Computer. Right,
You
sir.
have got to learn to handle the computer,
Yes,
because
sir.
it is, you can't get anywhere. You can't do any bookings. You can't do any transaction without being proficient in
Right,
the
sir. Right,
language
sir.
of the computer. So I advise all Muslims, learn Urdu. उर्दू जबान जाननी निहायत जरूरी है. आपको
जी
स्कूल में नहीं पढ़ाई जाएगी.
जी जी
आपके वालिदैन का फर्ज बनता है कि आपको घर पे उर्दू पढ़ाएं,
सर
सिखलाएं.
हमारे बच्चे नहीं पढ़ते हैं, कहते हैं उर्दू की कोई जरूरत नहीं है हमें, पर्शियन हम क्यों पढ़ें, वो खत्म हो चुकी है. तो हाउ टू गो अबाउट इट प्लीज
देखिए,
सर.
मैं भी एक स्कूल में पढ़ा हूं जहां खाली अंग्रेजी और हिंदी पढ़ाई जाते थे, और मैं बोर्डिंग स्कूल में था, मगर हम 3 महीने छुट्टी आते थे. मेरे वालिद जो है एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर थे दरगाह शरीफ में,
जी
तो
जी
मौलवी साहब आते थे और हमें अरबी और उर्दू पढ़ाते थे. आई एम सेल्फ टॉट. बेसिक्स हमने उर्दू की जरूर सीखी मौलवी साहब से, मगर आप बच्चों को यही बतलाइए कि अगर वो उर्दू नहीं सीखेंगे, और ये देखिए रोजी रोटी की जबान नहीं रही है. मैं एएमयू में देखता था कि जो नेता स्टूडेंट्स थे, बड़ी अच्छी उर्दू बोलते,
नफीस उर्दू, नफीस
शाइस्ता
उर्दू.
उर्दू,
जी शाइस्ता नफीस.
मगर उनका स्क्रिप्ट जो है हिंदी में लिखा हुआ होता था.
ओके.
तो निहायत जरूरी है कि आप उर्दू बोलें और लिखना और पढ़ना सीखें.
ओके.
तो यही मुझे कहना था. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया.
नहीं सर, अभी हम लोग आपको लीव नहीं करेंगे सर, बिकॉज यू आर अ लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल इन आर्मी.
ओके.
We would also like to know how to encourage our youths to go into the Indian Army, because they are very susceptible about Indian Army. अरे आर्मी में नहीं जा सकते हैं हम.
बिल्कुल. देखिए, ये हमारा मुल्क है
जी,
और मुसलमानों की जिम्मेदारी है कि हम इस मुल्क की हिफाजत करें. It is our moral duty to contribute towards the defense of our country.
Absolutely, sir.
And it is very simple. You don't need any pulls. You just need a good education. I tried to introduce this training. We built an obstacle course. What you need, you should encourage children that after 12th, they should aim for the National Defense Academy. That is the premier institution of entry into the armed forces. I joined after class 11, after senior Cambridge. But then in the army, it educated me. I did my graduation, my post-graduation, MPhil, all sorts of things. We are sending people abroad we are sending people to the IITs for MTech. So and it's very, very simple. All you need to do is be physically fit. Please encourage your children not to sit the whole time on computers. They are important, but they must play games. They must run in the morning.
I just agree with you. I agree with you, but کہ مسلمان خواتینوں کے اوپر زیادہ ذمہ داری ہے قوم کی. Being a mother, being a sister, we are more responsible.
اور ہماری خواتین جو ہیں یہ ذمہ داری کا بوجھ بہت اچھی طریقے سے لے رہی ہیں.
جی.
میں آپ کو I want to tell you that I have been very, very impressed in AMU from our girl students. The women's college, outstanding performances. 90% of the medals were won by the girls. And I used to joke with the boys. I said, after a few years, we'll have to reserve some medals for you people if you don't start studying. So girls also should join the armed forces. You have to be physically fit. You have to be good in mathematics.
Yes,
You have
yes.
to be good in science.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is what I tell my child, what I tell my daughter. You have to be good in mathematics, Urdu,
Mathematics and
Persian,
science.
and Arabic.
Because, well, that's a plus point. Because in my time, I did, of course, I did mathematics, but I was really an art student. I did geography and English language, English literature. The actual
Yes, sir.
science and mathematics, I had the background from school, but I learned it in the National Defense Academy.
Okay, sir.
And then, of course, I became an artilleryman,
Okay.
where you cannot fire a round without 1 yard calculation. It was all in yards and minutes and degrees and everything else. So I had to learn trigonometry, I had to learn calculus. So
Yes.
young Muslim boys must be proficient, be firstly physically fit, because they'll weed you out. If you don't pass the physical test, they won't examine you any further. You have to run the 2 miles, you have to do 30 push-ups, you have to do 6 pull-ups, if you know what that means.
Yes,
Run
sir,
2
yes,
miles, then you will be subjected to well, if you pass the UPSC, UPSC depends on your knowledge of science and mathematics and current affairs. You must be aware of what's happening in the world. And what you have to tell the children is you don't have to mug it up. You have to be aware of what is happening and the implications of that on India. That is the most important. What the group testing officers are looking for is whether you have imbibed something for the good of the country. Then you will be put through a psychiatrist test. They really want to. What the psychiatrist is looking for is to judge whether you are a winner or loser. They can judge it. And most important is whether you are a team player. They don't want geniuses. No, the army is not looking for geniuses. If the geniuses come, well and good. I mean, they have to be
We totally agree with you, sir. We totally agree with you.
Average IQ.
We have other speakers. Yes, sir. We have other speakers.
That satisfies you.
Yes, sir. We have Mr. Dr. Khwaja Shahid with us, who is a former registrar at JMI. Can we have him? Angela, please help us. Vice Chancellor at MANUU. Please, who's there? Angela?
I'm there. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Please welcome, sir. Yes, sir.
What do you want? Me to speak or you want to ask?
No, sir. You please start on what is the
holistic
approach.
Like a question answer like you did just now, or you want me to speak?
No, sir. You start on with your own.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We would love to listen you, sir.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me for this Education Day program. Of course, it was a very short notice, but of course, subject very dear to me, and I did not hesitate to say yes to join this program.
No one better than you, sir, to explain what is education.
First of all, let me tell you that I, for one, is very impressed by the personality of Maulana Azad, like many others. And I feel that for the modern India, particularly for Muslims of India, Maulana Azad is a role model for us. And some sort of a prophecy. I mean, he was like prophetic when during independence struggle, during the partition period, and otherwise, most of the things which he said, he told us, particularly about partition and about the communal politics, two-nation theory, and so many other similar things, they have proved true the coming generation and to the present generation. So he was almost like a prophetic person to us, and whatever he said was proof correct.
Yes, sir.
Point two, which I would like to say that Maulana Azad personality, as I see it, and I found it, and that's again very interesting for me, is ever evolving personality. Like most of
Okay.
us, Maulana Azad, he himself has confessed that he was born in a traditional Muslim family. He was born as a Muslim in a Muslim family, but he said he has not adopted Islam just because he was born as a Muslim. He has examined all the faith and the dogmas and the beliefs, etc., given he acquired from his father. His father was Sufi,
Okay.
and he had a lot
Yes,
of
sir. Yes, sir.
murids.
I know he was a
And they
Sufi.
used
Yeah,
to come and touch
I've
his
heard.
hand. They used to come and touch. So he
Okay.
was not very happy with all those things. He
Okay.
questioned
Okay.
so much so that in a very young age he started even questioning the religion itself. So,
Mhm.
and then he came back to religion. So he has not become a Muslim just because he was born a Muslim. He was a questioning Muslim. He questioned Islam, he questioned
Yes.
faith, he questioned the Iman, everything, and
Yes.
then
Yes.
accepted. So that Aqliyat part of it, the rationalistic part of Maulana Azad is a very, very outstanding appeal to all of us. As General Shah just told us about his other qualities, the most important part which I acquired from his personality and which I learned from his personality, that whatever he get in his life, whatever comes to him in his life, he questioned that. And he questioned us on logic, on reasoning, on objectivity. And it was not just dogmatism. It was not that everybody has, it has come from his father, it has come from some other sources, and he has just followed it. So it's a sort of ijtihad. He was a mujtahid. He was a ijtihad in a way. So that's the message which all of us in this present day life, that we have to be a questioning Muslim. We have to question all over what is happening around us and evolve a rational opinion, a rational thought, rational action. So that's the one part of Maulana Azad. He joined, he was for pan-Islamism in his early age. But then he moved to nationalism after he came in contact with Mahatma Gandhi in the 1920s. So this is again an evolving personality. So he's not stuck to whatever thoughts was given to him. We know he was part of the underground movement in Calcutta. At the time, he was a part of underground movement, some sort of a violent movement. But then he became a staunch supporter of non-violence after coming in touch with Mahatma Gandhi. So these part of Maulana Azad is really very impressive for me. There are many authors who say that Maulana Azad philosophy remains constant throughout his life. He did not change philosophy. But I found in him an evolving personality. And with most of us, it happens. So history changes, sociology changes, everything changes. So there's one thing which I learned about Maulana, and I'm very impressed. Second thing is, that is was I think all most of us Muslim in India today must follow literally, actually, that his faith in unified nationalism, his rejection of two nation theory. There's no nationalism like Hindu nationalism or Muslim nationalism or Islamic nationalism or international. It was a unified nationalism for India. As General Sahib has just said, his faith in Hindu Muslim unity. His famous speech in Ramgarh that even if a farishta comes from the आसमान पे मुझसे कहे कि आज़ादी आज दे दो लेकिन अगर the cost of Hindu Muslim unity, I will not take that आज़ादी. That was his faith into Hindu Muslim unity, and he was the one who remained a staunch opponent to oppose two nation theory of the Muslim League throughout his life. And even all those in Congress, all those who Congress have been accepted at the last hour, whether willingly or unwillingly, two nation theory and divided the country, partitioned the country. Maulana stood tall, shoulder and head above the rest of them. He did not accept two nation theory. And he told Muslims repeatedly that one day you'll wake up and you'll find India divided into two countries. One will be Islamic country and one will be Indian, and you'll find yourself Indian, so on and so forth. So his speeches on this subject, his writing on the subject is eye-opening, and this is what is happening in this India today. I think we all Muslims learn that unity, and this is unity or unification of nationalism, unity of nationalism. It comes from Islamic thought, comes from Quran, comes from religious reading, etc., etc. So for us, the message that we are part of a unified nationalism in India. We cannot accept any other nationalism, whether it's Hindutva nationalism or Hindu nationalism or Islamic nationalism. We cannot accept that. He told us in unambiguous terms that there cannot be division of nation, or a nation cannot become on the basis of religion. So he was part of building a secular India, along with many others. And he became part of the history of India. He became part of the fate of India. He became part of the culture of India. And therefore, he could stand tall among all the leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Nehru and Patel, because he was as much part of Indian history and culture as they were there. So all of us in India, Muslims or Hindus, we should not confine him as a Muslim leader. He may be a good author, he may be Urdu author, he may be good speaker, he may be a religious leader, वो इमामुल हिंद थे, सब कुछ थे, लेकिन जो हिंदू मुसलमान इत्तेहाद का उन्होंने मैसेज दिया है, आज समझता हूँ आज के लिए वो बहुत ज़रूरी है अपने करके, और उनके जितने भी इस किस्म के मैसेज हैं वो हम उसको आगे बढ़ाएंगे. I move forward and I say that Maulana's contribution to education, as General Sahab has just informed us, is enormous, enormous. First education minister for 11 years. Why Nehru picked him as education minister? He could have picked up from any other subject. Because education is a vehicle for change. Education is a vehicle for building a nation. Education is a vehicle for bringing up a new generation. And therefore, secular education, Maulana stood for a secular education. आपने भी सवाल किया कि मदरसों के बारे में उनकी क्या राय थी. वो खुद मदरसों की तालीम हासिल करके आए थे. अपने वालिद से उन्होंने तालीम हासिल की थी. उन्होंने किसी स्कूल कॉलेज में नहीं पढ़ा था, वो ट्रेडिशनल तरीकों से पढ़े थे, मौलवियों से पढ़े थे, अरबी पढ़ी थी. लेकिन जितना उन्होंने मॉडर्न एजुकेशन को, कल्चर को, साइंस को, रिसर्च को प्रमोट किया, इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ साइंस उन्होंने बनाया, IITs को उन्होंने कायम करी, साहित्य अकेडमी कायम करी, आपके कल्चरल एकेडमीज कायम करी, तो उन सारे चीज़ों को उन्होंने उसमें रिसर्च, इनोवेशन उन्होंने फरोग दिया है. तो आज की जो एजुकेशन हमारी है, अगर हम उनको इस लाइन पे नहीं चलाएंगे और एजुकेशन के अगर हम डिवाइड कर देंगे कि मज़हब की अलग है और उसकी अलग है, तो मैं समझता हूँ नुकसान होगा. और जैसे कि आपने कहा कि एजुकेशन सिस्टम में जो हो रहा है, खराबियाँ हो रही हैं, उसकी एक वजह एक यही भी है. अपने मौलाना वांटेड फ्री एजुकेशन, ये भी एक बात हम सब, मौलाना वांटेड फ्री स्कूल एजुकेशन, और वो फाउंडेशन जो आर्टिकल डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल ऑफ हमारे डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में, जो फ्री एजुकेशन उसमें कंसेप्ट दिया गया है, उसकी सारी कोशिशें मौलाना की थी. और इसी वजह से उसी को चलते हुए आज उसी को आगे बढ़ते हुए आज वी हैव राइट टू एजुकेशन, फ्री एजुकेशन विद चिल्ड्रन अपने. तो वो फ्री एजुकेशन, कंपल्सरी एजुकेशन, प्राइमरी एजुकेशन, स्कूल एजुकेशन का जो कंसेप्ट ने दिया है, आज हमें राइट टू एजुकेशन का मिला हुआ है. Again, here again, Maulana's thought is I think everybody will agree when Maulana is saying education imparted by heart can bring revolution. Education imparted by heart can bring. Maulana का ये quotation हर जगह आपको लिखा हुआ मिल जाएगा, किताबों में, वेबसाइट्स वगैरह में अपने. तो ये मौलाना किसको एड्रेस कर रहे हैं? Education imparted by heart. Whom is he addressing to? To teachers. He's asking teachers to एजुकेशन को एक पेशा मत बनाइए. It's not a profession. It's just not for minting money, earning money. You have to teach by heart. दिल से पढ़ाना होगा, जज्बे से पढ़ाना होगा. तो अगर आप उससे पढ़ाएंगे तो रेवोल्यूशन कर देंगे अपने. तो जिस एजुकेशन को हम लुक फॉरवर्ड कर रहे हैं आज की नई एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में, हम उसमें यही सब देख रहे हैं कि टीचर्स की ट्रेनिंग कितनी इंपॉर्टेंट है. तो मैं अपने पर्सनल लाइफ में और दूसरे NGOs में और अपनी यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में जहाँ मैंने काम किया है, मैंने शिद्दत से महसूस किया है कि टीचर्स की ट्रेनिंग एक बेहद ज़रूरी चीज़ है, इंतहाई ज़रूरी चीज़ है. उनको उनके नई टेक्नोलॉजी बताना, उनकी नई पेडागॉगी बताना, उनको नई रिसर्च क्या हो रही है वगैरह वगैरह. इट गोज़ विदाउट सेइंग एसेंशियल. तो मौलाना जिस चीज़ पे इजहार करके जा रहे हैं अपने कि आप अगर दिल से पढ़ाएंगे तो आप रेवोल्यूशन कर देंगे, जज्बे से पढ़ाएंगे तो रेवोल्यूशन कर देंगे. तो मैं समझता हूँ कि ये आज के टीचर्स को, आज के तालीमी निज़ाम को, आज की नई एजुकेशन पॉलिसी को, स्कूलों को सब पर गौर देने की ज़रूरत है. मदरसे के टीचरों को इससे ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि वहाँ कोई रिक्रूटमेंट का कोई तरीका ऐसा है नहीं कि हम BEd या M.Ed करके पास करके आते हों. वो जो सेक्टर है हमारा उसमें टीचर्स ट्रेनिंग की बहुत ज़रूरत है. हम अपने NGOs के जरिए काम लगातार कर रहे हैं, ऑनलाइन कर रहे हैं आजकल इस डिजिटल टाइम में. तो मैं समझता हूँ कि एम्पायर जो है उस तरफ लोगों को अट्रैक्ट करे कि टीचर्स ट्रेनिंग का खास तौर से स्कूल लेवल पे اور ان کو اپگریڈ کرنے کا. اور آج کل جبکہ آن لائن ایجوکیشن ہو رہی ہے تو IT کے ذریعے ایجوکیشن ہو رہی ہے, ٹیکنالوجی کا بہت شدت کی ضرورت ہے, کمپیوٹر ٹیکنالوجی کی ضرورت ہے, ویب بیسڈ ٹیکنالوجی کی ضرورت ہے, ویب بیسڈ ایجوکیشن ہے. تو اس کے لیے ہم سب کو تیاری کرنے کی ضرورت ہے. اپنے ایک آخری پوائنٹ میں اور کہتا ہوں اپنے مولانا کے جو میں نے ان کی سے سیکھا ہے اپنے کر کے, اور یہ ان کی پرسنالٹی کا سب سے اہم امپورٹنٹ ہے کہ مولانا کی ایجوکیشن کو اگر ہم صحیح طریقے سے مولانا کی شخصیت کو ایجوکیشن کے پوائنٹ آف ویو سے, میں ان کی تذکرے کی بات نہیں کر رہا, میں ان کے ترجمہ قرآن کی بات نہیں کر رہا, میں ان کے اور کتابوں کی بات نہیں کر رہا, انہوں نے شیروانی صاحب کو جو خط لکھے ہیں ان کی بات نہیں کر رہا. وہ رائٹر تھے, اسلامک اسکالر تھے, امام الہند تھے. میں ان کے تعلیم کے پہلو پہ اپنے آپ کو کنفائن کیے ہوں. ترجمے آرام کا ترجمان قرآن پڑھیں, تفسیر پڑھیں, آنکھیں کھل جاتی ہیں. کیا ان کا تصور تھا, کیا ان کا خیال تھا. جو ان کی زبان ہے, جو ان کی سحر بیانی تھی, جو اسپیکر تھے, آڈیٹر تھے, ان کے بہت پہلو تھے اپنے. بقول اختر الباسط صاحب نے کہیں لکھا ہوا ہے کہ ایک شخصیت میں بہت ساری شخصیت تھے, ایک شخص میں بہت سارے شخص اس میں شامل تھے, ایک نہیں تھے, بہت سارے شخص ان میں شامل تھے اپنے. لیکن میں یہ کہہ رہا ہوں کہ مولانا آزاد کو اگر ہم صحیح عقیدہ خراج عقیدت پیش کر سکتے ہیں, اگر ہومج پے کر سکتے ہیں, ریسپیکٹ پے کر سکتے ہیں, تو برنگ دس ہولسٹک ایجوکیشن. We wanted a holistic education, a quality education and inclusive education. یہ اگر ہمارے سسٹم میں آ جاتی ہے, ہولسٹک ایجوکیشن میں سب کو ایجوکیشن دینا ہے, ساری چیزیں ہمیں, سارے اسپیکٹ کو ہمیں ایجوکیشن دینا ہے. ان میں ایلیبریٹ کرنے کی ضرورت نہیں ہے. یہاں سارے وائس چانسلر, پرو وائس چانسلر اور ایجوکیشن بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں. اس کے اوپر نیو ایجوکیشن پالیسی میں بہت کچھ کہا گیا ہے. اس کو اگر ہم نے آگے بڑھانا ہے, ہمارے چاہے مدرسے ہوں, چاہے ہمارے ویسے ٹریڈیشنل سسٹم ہو یا فارمل سسٹم ہو یا ماڈرن سسٹم ہو, ان سب پہ ہمیں کوالٹی ایجوکیشن پہ زور دینا ہے. جیسے جنرل صاحب نے کہا, کوالٹی کوالٹی اینڈ کوالٹی. اور یہی مولانا کا بھی میسج تھا, اور انہیں ساری عمر اسی کوشش کری, انوویشن کرے, نئے نئے سینٹر قائم کیے, IITs قائم کیے, انڈین انسٹیٹیوٹ آف سائنس قائم سیٹ کیا, ICSR قائم کیا, جہاں ریسرچ, انوویشن, ہندو مسلم یونٹی, بھائی چارہ, یونیفائڈ نیشنلزم, یونٹی آف ریلیجن, ان سب چیزوں پہ ہمیں اپنی ایجوکیشن میں جانا ہے. اس ویلیو سسٹم کو اگر یہ جائیں گے تو کمنگ جنریشن آف انڈیا will be proud of them, and our nation, every one of us is proud of our coming generation. تو میں سمجھتا ہوں مولانا کو اس سے اچھا خراج عقیدت نہیں ہو سکتا کہ we remember his contribution in the field of education, we remember his contribution in the field of Hindu Muslim unity, his contribution for the unified nationalism, apart from his as a scholar, etc., Islamic scholar, Urdu scholar, etc., and bring all these values in our modern educational system, along with, as General Saab said, in our madrasa education system. Thank you very much. I think I have to
Thank
say
you,
this
sir.
much. And
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. But I'll come back to you on Urdu legacy. Why is it losing? I'll come back to you. First, we have our next speaker, who's a very special guest. Injila, can you please connect me to Padma Shri Professor Akhtarul Wase Saab?
جی بہت شکریہ.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. We would like to have your insight on the Maulana Abul Kalam Azad's holistic approach to educational empowerment of Indian Muslims. Sir, what are your views on this?
دیکھیے ایسا ہے کہ سب سے پہلے تو یہ سمجھنا چاہیے کہ مولانا صرف مسلمانوں کے لیے فکر مند نہیں تھے.
جی.
بحیثیت منسٹر فار ایجوکیشن کے وہ تقریباً 10 سال سے زیادہ تک ہندوستان کے پہلے وزیر تعلیم رہے, اور وزیر تعلیم کی حیثیت سے ان کی فکر کا مرکز جو تھے صرف مسلمان نہیں تھے بلکہ تمام ہندوستانی تھے. اور یہی اپروچ ہونی چاہیے آج بھی, کہ ہمیں کسی ایک مخصوص فرقے کے لیے نہیں سوچنا چاہیے بلکہ سب کی فکر کرنی چاہیے, ہر وہ شخص جو ہندوستانی ہے. کیونکہ ہندوستان کو اگر دنیا کے پردے پر ایک بڑی طاقت کے طور پہ ابھر کے آنا ہے اور اپنی جگہ بنانی ہے, تو پھر اس کے وہ کسی ایک طبقے کو نظر انداز کر کے یا پیچھے چھوڑ کے آگے نہیں بڑھ سکتا ہے. مولانا آزاد جیسا کہ محترم جنرل ضمیر الدین شاہ صاحب نے اور برادر محترم خواجہ محمد شاہد صاحب نے اپنی باتیں کہیں, میں ان کی تائید کرتا ہوں اور ان سے اتفاق کرتا ہوں. اور جو مجھے عرض کرنا ہے وہ یہ کہ لیکن بحیثیت مسلمان کے مسلمانوں کا جو تعلیمی پسماندگی ہے وہ سر سید سے مولانا آزاد تک سب کی توجہ کا مرکز رہی ہے اور سب کی کوششوں کا محور بھی رہی ہے. ہمیں یہ سمجھنا چاہیے. مولانا نے ایک طرح سے یہ بہت دلچسپ بات ہے کہ ہندوستان کا پہلا وزیر تعلیم وہ شخص ہے جیسا خواجہ شاہد صاحب کہہ رہے تھے جو کہ معاف کیجیے گا کسی یونیورسٹی اور کالج میں نہیں پڑھا. انگلینڈ کی یونیورسٹی تو بڑی چیز ہے, وہ الہ آباد اور کلکتے میں بھی نہیں پڑھا, کی یونیورسٹیوں میں نہیں پڑھا, لیکن اس نے ہمیں جو ایجوکیشنل ویژن دیا اور جو ایجوکیشنل پلاننگ دی اور ایجوکیشنل ایڈمنسٹریشن دیا وہ غیر معمولی تھا. یہ میں ایک بات یہاں بہت ادب کے ساتھ عرض کرتا چلوں کہ مولانا نے وزارت تعلیم کے اندر ڈاکٹر تارا چند اور خواجہ غلام السیدین جیسی شخصیتوں کو لا کر ایک طرح سے یہ پیغام دیا کہ وزارت تعلیم جو ہے وہ عام نوکر شاہوں کے ذریعے نہیں چلنی چاہیے, بلکہ اس کے لیے اس میں جو تعلیم کی پالیسیاں ہیں اور تعلیم کا ڈھانچہ ہے اس پر نظر رکھنے کے لیے کہ ہمارے پاس ماہرین تعلیم ہونے چاہیے جیسے ڈاکٹر تارا چند و خواجہ غلام السیدین تھے. ایک بات. دوسری بات جو ہے وہ یہ کہ جہاں تک مسلمانوں کی تعلیم کا سوال ہے, آپ نے کہا ہمیں یہ نہیں بھولنا چاہیے کہ مسلمان جو تھے انہوں نے ایک طرح سے عالم اسلام میں یہ شرف اور یہ امتیاز اور یہ پریویلیج جو ہے صرف ہندوستان کو حاصل ہے کہ پہلا جدید یا ماڈرن سیکولر ایجوکیشن کا تعلیمی ادارہ مسلمانوں کی طرف سے ہندوستان میں قائم ہوا. یعنی 24 مئی 1875 کو علی گڑھ میں مدرسۃ العلوم مسلمانان کے نتیجے میں, جو فروری 1877 میں MAO کالج بنا اور دسمبر 1920 کے اندر جس نے علی گڑھ مسلم یونیورسٹی کا روپ دھارا. تو اس اعتبار سے اگر آپ دیکھیں تو مسلمان جو تھے ان کے یہاں ایک تعلیم کی نئی بیداری آئی تھی, لیکن وہ بنیادی طور پہ اگر دیکھا جائے تو اپنے ہم وطنوں سے 100 سال پیچھے تھے. لیکن ایک نیا سفر شروع ہوا تھا اور مولانا نے بھی اس کی کبھی مخالفت نہیں کی, بلکہ انہوں نے اسے انکریج کیا. اسی لیے جیسے جنرل صاحب فرما رہے تھے جامع ملیہ اسلامیہ کے قیام میں بھی مولانا برابر سے شریک تھے, اگرچہ وہ اپنی دوسری مصروفیات کی وجہ سے اس طرح جامعہ کے لیے وقت نہیں نکال سکے جیسا کہ ڈاکٹر حکیم اجمل خان نے, ڈاکٹر مختار احمد انصاری نے, اور شروع میں مولانا محمد علی نے, اور بعد میں AM خواجہ صاحب وغیرہ نے, ذاکر صاحب وغیرہ نے نکالا. دوسری بات جو مجھے عرض کرنی ہے مولانا کے حوالے سے وہ یہ کہ انہوں نے اس ملک کی نہیں بلکہ جس کو کہتے ہیں بر صغیر سب کانٹیننٹ کی مستقبل کے لیے جو ایک طرح سے اسکرپٹ لکھا مستقبل کا, وہ بالکل جوں کا توں صحیح ثابت ہوا. ملک کی تقسیم کی انہوں نے مخالفت کی, قومی یکجہتی کے وہ ہمیشہ حامی رہے. انہوں نے ہندو مسلم اتحاد کی بات کی. انہوں نے تقسیم کی مخالفت اس بنیاد پہ کی کہ جب تقسیم ہو جائے گی اور تم سے اس کے بعد پوچھا جائے گا کہ تم کہاں کے ہو, کہاں سے, کون ہو, کہاں سے آئے ہو, تو تم کیا جواب دیتے پھرو گے. یہ سب صحیح ثابت ہوا جب ایک دوسرے سے. دوسری بات جو ہے انہوں نے ایک بات جو آج کے تناظر میں بہت ضروری ہے اور جسے ہندوستانیوں کو عام کرنے کی ضرورت ہے, خواجہ صاحب نے اس کی طرف اشارہ بھی کیا تھا. انہوں نے دہلی میں کانگریس کے سب سے کم عمر صدر کی حیثیت سے ایک خطبہ صدارت دیا تھا اور انہوں نے اس میں کہا تھا اگر ایک فرشتہ آسمان کی بلندیوں سے اتر کر آئے اور قطب مینار کی چوٹی پر کھڑے ہو کر یہ کہے کہ ہندوستان کو سوراج ابھی مل سکتا ہے بشرطے کہ وہ ہندو مسلم اتحاد سے دستبردار ہو جائے, تو میں سوراج سے دستبردار ہونا پسند کروں گا हिंदू मुस्लिम इत्तेहाद से नहीं, क्योंकि स्वराज के मिलने में अगर कुछ देर हुई तो इससे सिर्फ हिंदुस्तान का नुकसान होगा, लेकिन अगर हिंदू मुस्लिम इत्तेहाद जाता रहा तो ये आलमी इंसानियत का नुकसान होगा। आज इस सबक को दोहराने की जरूरत है। तालीम का जहां तक सवाल है, मुझे एक बात और कहने की इजाजत दीजिए। आज नई तालीम की बात हो रही है, नई तालीमी पॉलिसी आई है। मैं किसी नई तालीमी पॉलिसी के खिलाफ नहीं हूं, क्योंकि मेरा ये मानना है कि अफकार ताजा से है जहान ताजा की नमूद के संगो खिश से होते नहीं जहां पैदा। लेकिन मेरा कहना यह है कि तालीम के अंदर भेदभाव नहीं होना चाहिए, तालीम के अंदर एक कम्युनल डिवाइड नहीं होना चाहिए, जो कि हमें नई तालीमी पॉलिसी में इस तरह नजर आ रहा है कि 1206 से लेके 1947 तक जो एक अहद है पूरा, उसको एक तरह माइनस कर दिया गया है। ये रवैया नहीं होना चाहिए। मौलाना इसके आदी नहीं थे। मैं आज के तालीम साजों को ये बात बताना चाहता हूँ और उनकी खिदमत में ये अर्ज करना चाहता हूँ, मौलाना मदरसे के पढ़े हुए थे, वो एक मजहबी आलिम थे, वो मुफस्सिर कुरान थे, लेकिन इसके बावजूद हम सब जानते हैं कि उन्होंने, जैसा कि कहा गया, ये मुझसे पहले IITs भी कायम किए, उन्होंने एक तरह से हमें मेडिकल तालीम का इंतजाम भी हमारे लिए किया, लेकिन उन्होंने साथ में एक बड़ा काम ये किया कि उन्होंने हमारी जो कल्चरल एक आइडेंटिटी है उसको तालीम से अलग नहीं किया, बल्कि अगर आप देखें तो बहैसियत वजीर तालीम के ये मौलाना ही थे जिन्होंने के इंडियन काउंसिल फॉर कल्चरल रिलेशंस को कायम किया। ये मौलाना थे जिन्होंने तालीम को एक इंक्लूसिव बनाने के लिए यूनिवर्सिटी ग्रांट्स कमीशन का क़याम किया। ये मौलाना थे जिन्होंने के हमारे लिए संगीत नाटक एकेडमी बनाई। ये मौलाना थे जिन्होंने हमारे लिए साहित्य एकेडमी बनाई। आज जरूरत इस बात की है कि हम इन चीजों को देखें, इन पे गौर करें और ये सोचें कि एक शख्स जो जिसे आज की जबान में, माफ कीजिएगा, मदरसे वाले को क्या समझा जाता है, कदामत पसंद, दकियानूसी जी, एक रेडिकल मौलाना रेडिकल थे, लेकिन मुल्क की आजादी के लिए थे, साम्राज्य के खिलाफ थे, और ये बात हमें जाननी चाहिए। लेकिन उन्होंने हिंदुस्तानियों को जोड़े रखने के लिए जो गैर मामूली खिदमत अंजाम दी, आप उन्हें फरामोश नहीं कर सकते हैं। हमें ये भी नहीं भूलना चाहिए, अब हम इस वक्त जिस दौर से गुजर रहे हैं, जिस आजमाइश का शिकार हैं, इम्पार जैसी तंजीमें जिसकी वजह से वजूद में आ रही हैं, हमें ये गौर करना चाहिए कि मौलाना का रोल क्या था आजादी के बाद, तकसीम के बाद। जी, हमारी आजादी जब आई तो वो तकसीम के खून में नहा के आई थी। ऐसे वक्त में मौलाना ने क्या किया, मौलाना ने सबको जोड़ने की कोशिश की। अलीगढ़ मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी, जिसको के एक तरह से निशाना बनाया जा रहा था और जिसको मिटाने की कोशिश हो रही थी, मौलाना ने उसकी हिफाजत के लिए पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू के मशवरे से डॉक्टर जाकिर हुसैन को भेजा अलीगढ़ कि जाओ और उसको बचाओ और उसकी नई पहचान बनाओ। ये आज की जरूरत है कि आज भी हम इस तर्ज पे सोचें। आज हमें सोचना चाहिए कि हमारी तालीम जो है वो सेकुलर जमहूरी कदरों की बुनियाद पर उस्तवार होनी चाहिए, जिसको कि मौलाना ने किया था। मौलाना मजहबी आदमी थे, लेकिन वो कौन सी मजहब के मानने वाले थे, उस मजहब के मानने वाले थे जिसमें के ला इकराह फिद्दीन, दीन में कोई जोर जबरदस्ती नहीं है। लकुम दीनकुम वलिय दीन, तुम्हारा दीन तुम्हारे लिए है और मेरा दीन मेरे लिए है का सबक पढ़ाया गया। वो उस तहजीब का हिस्सा थे जिसके अंदर सर्वधर्म संभाव की बात की गई थी। तो ये एक चीज है जिस पे हमें गौर करना चाहिए। और आज हम जब मौलाना को याद कर रहे हैं तो हमें ये नहीं भूलना चाहिए कि उन्होंने बुनियादी तालीम को एक तरह से, जैसा कि कहा गया मुझसे पहले, मुफ्त تعلیم کا ایک تصور پیش کیا تھا جس کو پھل لاتے لاتے اور جس کو ایک طرح سے ممکن ہوتے ہوئے ہمیں تقریباً 50 سال لگ گئے اور 2009 میں RTE آ سکا. لیکن مولانا آزاد اپنی جگہ کل بھی اہم تھے، آج بھی اہم ہیں. ہر اعتبار سے وہ ایک مسلمان عالم دین کی حیثیت سے بھی، بے مثال خطیب کی حیثیت سے بھی، ایک محترم انشا پرداس کی حیثیت سے بھی، ایک بڑے قائد کی حیثیت سے بھی. اور قائد وہ جو کہ مدبر ہوتا ہے، اور ایک عام قائد اور مدبر میں وہی فرق ہوتا ہے جو کہ بنیادی طور پہ بارش کو دیکھ کر بارش کے ہونے کا اعلان کرنے والا اور برسات کے بادل کو گھرا ہوا دیکھ کر کہ اس کا اعلان کرنے والے میں فرق ہوتا ہے. یہ مولانا کے اندر تھا. آج مولانا کو ہم یاد کر رہے ہیں یوم تعلیم کے موقع پر، تو ہمیں ایک دفعہ پھر ایک انکلوسیو سسٹم آف ایجوکیشن اور ایک یونائٹڈ انڈیا کی بات کرنی چاہیے، اور ایک انکلوسیو ہمیں معاشرہ بنانے کی کوشش کرنی چاہیے جس کے اندر کے سب لوگ مل کے رہ سکیں، اور غالب کی زبان میں ہر شخص اس کا تمنائی ہو کہ ہے رنگ لالو گلو نسری جدا جدا، ہر رنگ میں بہار کا اس بات چاہیے. یعنی ہر رنگ جو ہے وہ بنیادی طور پہ اس کے اندر ایک دائمی طور پہ، پائیدار طور پہ، جیسے کہ پرماننسی کے ساتھ جو ہے حسن ہونا چاہیے اور خوشبو ہونی چاہیے. بہت بہت شکریہ.
Thank you so much. It was a really very intellectual thoughts, and we feel like the generation feels like, you know, education is something very vast. ایک بہت ہی بڑا یہ دائرہ ہے، اور صرف ایجوکیشن جو ہمیں اسکول میں مل رہی ہے آج کل یا جو ایسے اداروں میں مل رہی ہے وہ صرف ایک سرٹیفکیٹ کی طرح سے ہے. تو ہمیں بھی we should think like Maulana Abul Kalam Azad about the holistic approach. Now we have amongst us a very great thinker, Dr. SM Ilyas Sahab. He's a dean at ISAB and a former VC at NDUAT. Please, Angela, connect me to SM Ilyas Sahab. You're there, yes. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam.
Sir, we would like to have your views here.
Yeah, I'm highly blessed by being in the august company of so many luminaries. I was very aptly by listening to what has been said by my predecessors, and was really very impressed by trying to understand that what kind of a genius was Maulana.
Yes, so welcome, sir, from Impar. We welcome you, and please, you share your views.
Thank you so much.
You're expert.
I just to start with at the outset, I would say this, that my own transformation from being a very strong proponent of higher education to being a die-hard fan of the primary education came from the inspiration of Maulana Azad. He was the one who understood this much before than anybody else in the country, because that century, 19th century, was a real blessed century for India, having given birth to greats like Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, Maulana Azad, and so many. But amongst these luminaries, he was the one who was not, formally educated in the real sense of being a graduate, a postgraduate, or a doctorate holder of a university. He was largely a self-taught man, but was a genius, because as a child prodigy also, he was something we are very highly prolific, productive, starting with journalism. But that's not the topic of my thinking here. What I was trying to say is this, that his love and his hard work, despite being so busy with Congress, being the youngest president and so on, he spent a lot of time on promoting the primary education. And this, we can see that even after so many years of independence, our primary education is in shambles. We go to a primary school, not the blessed ones who are run by public, so-called public institutions, but the common ones. The primary schools run in the rural areas, you will see the condition there. I read somewhere that at the main door of a university in the US, it was written that if you want to spoil a nation or a community, spoil its education system. And that's exactly what is happening around here, that no, we have forgotten the values and importance of primary education taught by Maulana. And his call for universal primary education up to the age of 14, made free, was made so many decades ago, and which took so much time for independent India to implement this. Why he did this? So my transformation from being a proponent of higher education, for having spent my entire working life in higher education, to being a supporter of the primary education is because of this. That unless we strengthen our primary education, unless we make it viable, unless we make it real knowledge giving, because the foundation is this. If we weaken our foundation, the superstructure which we make further, our children may go to the secondary and university education and all that will be very, very weak. So the strengthening of the primary education, and that's what exactly is being done by our madrasas. You know, madaris are very often criticized, derided by the people who think that these are, very rudimentary kind of, very obstructionist and very conservative. They stand in the way of progress. I would dare to say this, that this is all nonsense. The great contribution of madrasas, cannot be overlooked. And I'll give you one instance. When I visited a madrasa some time back, and I was discussing with the Maulana and all the issues of education normally. He said, sir, you people are all the time telling that hum log jahil hain, hame kuch aata jata nahi hai. Lekin janab, hamare liye aap jahil hain aur mere aapke liye main jahil. ये जो जहालत का जो की डेफिनेशन भी जो है बड़ी अजीब सी होती है. तो हमें ये सोचना चाहिए कि मदारिस ने जो काम किया है, और मौलाना भी मदरसे से की ही जो है प्रोडक्ट थे, और डॉक्टर अब्दुल कलाम आज़ाद भी मदरसे से निकले थे. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि मदरसे में जो है सब ऐसे ही दकियानुसी चीज़ें पढ़ाई जाती हैं, उनमें कुछ काम नहीं होता है. Madrasas have great future. The only thing is this, that we must, as has been said by previous speakers, that make the teachers of madrasa capable. Once I was visiting another country, and I went to a primary school run by a church. Now, when I discussed with the priest there, I saw that the kind of facilities for the training of the teachers was tremendous. They gave the teachers the best possible training in the best institutions. When they came back, their level of education was second to none. So instead of deriding and criticizing madrasas, let us try to make them capable, make them modern, make them infrastructure better, and then expect them to deliver the goods, which they have been doing it. And it is very wrong to say that the education is first for jobs. I am one who is totally in disagreement with this. Education is not for jobs. Education is for making you capable of doing anything you undertake. Once a professor was asking me, telling me this to remember, and I remember it and often quote it, that whatever you do, even if you are a cobbler, even if you are a grass cutter, even if you are a carpenter, you will be the best one. But how will this come? This will come only through skill development, through education. So the job of education is to make a person capable, and that is what our Prophet ﷺ said, that get the knowledge, even if you have to go to China. So education's importance is there. So I was just trying to say this. Of course, paucity of time is there, but let me make it short. That instead of giving so much of importance, of course, Maulana never forgot higher education. He established IIT, helping establish IISc, Institute of Science, then Jamia Millia, and several institutes everybody has talked about. But he gave maximum importance to building up the primary education, which we are trying to forget. And I would say this, that our all efforts should be to how to bring better, more skilled, more aware children from these primary education institutions and madrasas, who will become a better citizen, more capable, more trained, more skilled, and will be able to take the responsibilities. Some of them will go to higher education also. It is not that everybody has to go to university. It's not necessary. In fact, in the other countries, it is not so. A very small percentage of the children who pass out of the secondary education schools, they go to far higher education. The higher education is very specific. It costs a lot of infrastructure, costly infrastructure is required. So we must give more emphasis to this. The other thing I would like to just briefly mention is that Maulana was not only an educationist, as has been said by General Shah, he was for everybody. So to talking about only Muslim education will not be sufficient. It will be against the dream of Maulana. He was for education for every Indian. So we must do that how to bring out Indians, we Muslims or Hindus or wherever. And I must say this, that our madrasas should open their doors for every other community also. It is not that they should teach only the Muslims. I have been also telling this to Madaris, to Maulanas, to the heads of the institutions there, that please open your doors and windows. Let the air come in. Why should you confine it to Muslims? Let others see that what you are doing. Are they producing the terrorists? No. They are going to produce the scholars. So unless you tell that, unless you show it to others, how will that happen? So just to conclude that, I would say this, that our undue emphasis on higher education has to give way to making the primary education much more stronger than it is today, because it is in bad conditions today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Hello.
Yes, I'm thinking.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your insights. And after hearing such intellectual talks, I think I'm an immature speaker, because I'm a speaker as well as a moderator. And what I would like to say, in my view, that in Islam, it's the duty of seeking knowledge and learning is obligatory for every Muslim.
Yes.
The glorious Quran, it says in some verse, I think it's 39 or something, and it addresses all people and indicates that people will be judged by their knowledge and understanding. Here, the concept of knowledge and understanding is something different, what we merely take in Quranic terms. Coming back to
first ayat revealed by Allah to Prophet ﷺ was about ilm, about knowledge. So the importance of knowledge is universally recognized by us, and it should be. And we are the ones who are lagging behind. We are not following the Quran as has been taught to us. That has been our bad luck, our misfortune.
Maulana Azad view, because I speak on women empowerment in Mumbai, and I have written in the articles in Quint and many of the articles that is basically on the Muslim women's. What I have felt that education is one of the critical areas of empowering women. And Maulana Azad saw that girls or the women, they play an important role in the development of the country. And the education for girls was a primary concern for him, for the democratic consolidation, for the social cohesiveness, and for the sustained growth of the country. And Maulana Azad, he did not allow any section to lag behind. The best thing, the tagline, what we have right now, that all the sections in the society should not lag behind in getting education. And especially 50% of our population, if it's female, I think, the full participation of women in the various spheres of society should be, the women should be empowered in higher education. And Maulana Azad also, he tried to imbibe the best practices from the other countries. like how he guided the IIT Kharagpur. He was there at the inaugural ceremony of IIT Kharagpur. How did he guide the UGC? Zamiruddin Shah Sahab and the other Vice Chancellor, sir, aap log ko to pata hi hoga. So it's like higher education along with madrasa education. What I would like to emphasize here, and women empowerment. It's all a consolidated pack of 3 into 1. How to go about it? So my question to Khwaja Shahid Sahab, how would you empower women? Because mostly people troll me. The people troll us, Muslim women, you are kept under burqa and you are not getting education. How to go about it? Khwaja Sahib, sir, can you please hear?
So please unmute your mic.
Unmute myself, sorry.
Yeah.
मैं ये कह रहा था कि आपने तो अपने सवाल का जवाब खुद ही दे दिया है और उसमें कहीं इजाफा करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है
नहीं
कि
सर, प्लीज आप जी
तालीम एजुकेशन ही के जरिए एम्पावरमेंट है। तालीम के जरिए जस्टिस भी आता है, तालीम के जरिए आपका सोशल स्टेटस भी ऊंचा होता है, तालीम के जरिए आपकी मौशी हालत भी अच्छी होती है, आपका वैल्यू सिस्टम भी अच्छा होता है। तो तालीम जो होलिस्टिक तालीम की हमने बात करी या वैल्यू बेस्ड तालीम की बात करी, जिसके लिए मौलाना आज़ाद को हम याद कर रहे हैं और उनकी खिदमत को याद कर रहे हैं, तो वो होलिस्टिक और वैल्यू बेस्ड एजुकेशन अगर हम अपने समाज में यूथ को देंगे तो उसमें लड़कियों से ज़्यादा वो वैल्यू सिस्टम हमें अपने लड़कों को भी देना होगा कि उनको लड़कियों की इज्जत करनी है, लड़कियों की तालीम के लिए उनको या उनके मुआशरे में जो उनको मुकाम देना है, लड़कों को भी सिखाना होगा, अपने यंग अपने मेन को भी सिखाना होगा कि यू हैव टू रेस्पेक्ट वुमेन, you have to give them freedom, you have to give them freedom.
Sir, what I speak is that first we have to empower men.
Empowerment का रास्ता यही है। Empowerment में मेरे नजर में empowerment ये है कि women should have right to take a decision. उसको अपने बारे में, अपनी तालीम के बारे में, अपने पेशे के बारे में, अपनी जिंदगी के बारे में फैसला लेने का हक और इक़्तिदार होना चाहिए. She should have a right to take a decision about herself. And that right should be not only legal right, it should be a social right. It should be a family right. It should be accepted by a husband. It should be accepted by a son. It should be accepted by a father. Like we all talk about Islamic values. तो हम सब जानते हैं कि Islamic system में women को rights कितने दिए हुए हैं, including right to choose a husband. Is a given right to a woman to choose a husband. So like that. So enormous rights are not being given. So first educate women. She must know what is her rights, and then educate the society. Educate the male part of society. The first educate women part of society. She must know their own rights. She should know own position, values, contribution, history, so on and so forth, religion, and so on and so, and also educate the society. And on the gender part, on the gender side, the male part of the society, they must respect the woman. So this is the only way process to empower them. Giving them, I have seen in my locality where I'm living in Delhi, in New Delhi, in South Delhi, this is Jasoda Vihar. My consular seat is reserved for ladies. My consular is a lady, but she never comes out. All her affairs are the affairs are maintained by her husband. He comes in inauguration. He comes in holding and building holdings. He comes on Independence Day. He comes on tree plantation day. We never see that lady consular. We never see. This is happening right in Delhi, in South Delhi, and that woman is not uneducated, and then husband is not uneducated.
This should be voiced out, sir. In the 21st century, I think this should be voiced out.
This should be voiced out, and therefore that husband should be told, and the society should be told, should accept that this is not the right belongs to your wife, and she should be able to take a decision. So my point is that if this type of society should be changed, and should be changed by our education system. And you have that's so rightly said. First is education empowerment, and second in my mind is economic empowerment of women. If she has economic empowerment, that's why I think it's the great revolutionary right given to women in the succession of property by Islam. Though it was a half succession than a boy, but some succession was given to women 1400 years back. So owning property, like Prophet Muhammad's wife was running a business. Hazrat Khadija was running a business, independent business. she has economic independence. She has economic freedom.
Yes.
She has right to hire a person. She hired Prophet Muhammad before he became a prophet. She hired him as an agent in the business. So that type of freedom
Yes.
of should be available to women, which was
Absolutely.
available in those days to Hazrat Khadija as a trader, as a person who could take a decision about herself, her business, and whom to hire. Hire a person who's going to be her future husband, who's going to be a future prophet, who's going to be a future prophet. So like that. So I personally feel women should get a right to take decision about themselves. They should have a right to have a full education and freedom of education and freedom of economic freedom. If we can provide these things in our society, I think we can be able to give. And biggest responsibility lies on men like us, on
Yes.
men, not on women.
Yes, sir.
So we
Agreed.
are responsible.
If you look at Bangladesh,
Yes, sir.
it is a typical example of empowerment of women.
Which one?
Okay.
You know, earlier, the Bangladeshi women
Yes,
did,
sir.
after the garment industry came up and the women started making garments at home, it led to total power empowerment of the Bangladeshi women. And I agree with Khwaja Shahid Sahab that financial empowerment is absolutely essential, and of course, education. These
Yes, sir.
go hand in hand. Women will not be empowered unless they are financially sound, and that's what our must be financial.
So I may add to what Janan Saab is saying. Look at today's 2 days back. What happened in Patna, Bihar? What is every newspaper saying? Who has helped this present government to come back? Women. They voted more than men. 65% women voted more than men. And this is said by all newspapers. I am very happy to note, whether I am for this party or that party, that women was instrumental in their casting their vote and taking independent decision, cast vote for A or B or C party, that that particular party could win election. That's all newspaper reports, surveys, and it's the same. So they should have a right to take a decision. I gave you an example of a counselor of my constituency. She could not take a decision about her own coming out in function and things like that. Unless they don't have a right to freedom of take decision and take freedom of take decision about their own education.
Sir, thank you so much. A very fast question to Zamiruddin Shah Sahab. The latest attacks on Muslim institution, how to break these type of stereotypes?
Well, you know, I've always been saying that the administration has always had a jaundiced eye towards institutions. They've had a jaundiced eye towards AMU, they've had
MU Jamia.
Jamia.
Yes,
Fortunately, Jamia Hamdard was spared of this. I think, you know, the students have to be very, very careful. When agitating, nothing should be seen as being anti-national. They are not anti-national by any means. But the media projects it as anti-national. That is the unfortunate
Yes.
part. And if these institutions refrain from disorder, lawlessness, and agitation, it would save them from a lot of trouble. That is the end. Of course, the universities have to do a lot of work in research. We have got to make sure that these universities come on top of the ladder in terms of university rankings. Fortunately, the efforts have started in that direction, but we've got to accept that these institutions will always be viewed with a jaundiced eye. And we must make efforts not to provoke the administration and the police. That's all I've got to say.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Can
Now
I just,
is
can I just know, I mean, just for a
Yes.
moment? You
Sure.
see, two things I would like to supplement here is that we always talk about the 3-4 universities which are there, you know, AMU, Jamia Millia, Jamia Hamdard, and a few more. In my opinion, in a country of 200 million Muslims, these 3 institutions or 4 institutions alone will not be able to do these things. to meet the requirements. That is one thing. So let thousand flowers bloom. Let not only these institutions of great importance, historic as well as knowledge centers, be there, strengthened and made more great, but let other institutions which are coming up, especially when we see in South, institutions are being built up. Institutions, of course, not as great as Aligarh University or Jamia Millia and others, but they are doing a great job. We need to also appreciate them, give them the due importance and so on. The second thing is, just very briefly, is that a mention was made about Bangladesh, that how the women, became, the major, tool and motor for the development. Actually, it came other way. First the financial empowerment came. Professor Muhammad Yunus, Grameen Bank, he started, and then I have seen it myself several times, and seen that these poor women, illiterate ones, never had any formal or informal education. They got the loan because he said that getting loan is my right, birthright. And he gave loans, not of course on low interest, but high interest, for going the far backyard poultry, rearing some goats, and there are several such small things. And they got some money. Then what they did first thing was they sent their children to the school. So it is not that always first education should come and then empowerment will come, not necessarily. The empowerment will come first when you have financial empowerment, and when the women will have say in the family. And the say of the woman in the family will be largely dependent upon what kind of financial empowerment she has. Thank you.
I entirely agree with Professor Ilyas. But I want to stress one thing. What is happening is that Muslim youth is banking totally to the last resort. That means, let's try for AMU, let's try for Jamia, let's try for Jamia Hamdard. Very well. Why don't you try for the open competitive examinations of other universities?
Absolutely. Agree with that. Agree.
You will not get any more minority universities henceforth.
Correct. True.
So don't bank on them, the universities of the last resort. Equip yourself with education, strive, develop competitive zeal, and get into the other universities. They are wide open. Their entry is through open competitive examinations, IITs, IIMs, all these institutions. Open competitive examinations. Unfortunately, our youth don't qualify. And in that matter, I would like to say that I'm helping out the Zakat Foundation, which is preparing young boys of all communities, but primarily Muslim, to appear for the competitive exams, appear for the central services. This is the direction we've got to go. Let's not bank only on AMU, Jamia, and Jamia Hamdard. Let's compete and get through other universities, other institutions of higher learning through open competitive examinations.
Absolutely, absolutely. I entirely
So
agree with that.
we appreciate it, and it's a commendable job.
No doubt, yeah.
So that was a delightful insight from all our speakers for today. I think we are running out of time. And this type of intellectual talk shows should be more there on Impar. I'll have a word with Ansari Sahab and Khan Sahab. Mr. Najmuddin Farooqi Sahab is waiting to give vote of thanks. Angela, can you please connect us?
Sir, can you please unmute your mic?
Before that, if I am allowed to speak few words, before that, Miss Angela and Miss Ashi, we have had approximately 90 minutes of discussion so far. Is it possible for all of you to compile the action plans, what we are deriving from this discussion?
That was my next question. That was
Right.
I was
Talking
just about to
talking
conclude
helps us increase our knowledge, but only that potential knowledge is not enough. Action points are important, and who are the people who are committed to take actions for the upliftment of our community? Talks are good, but who will work on the ground? Let's focus on that. I am ready to commit myself to work on the ground. Let's understand and let's show the path forward. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Very well said, sir.
doing
Yes,
this
Angela.
work precisely what
No,
you
yes.
are doing.
Yeah,
Power
she will
has
take
been
over.
doing this kind of work. So I think let's also strengthen this institution in Power for doing this.
Perfect, perfect, yeah.
So yeah, we at Empower are working for this. We are also making our job portal, which would provide opportunities to the youth. And we are also working. We are initiating different programs. So we are working on it, and we just need some
All
time.
right. Okay.
Yeah, we are on it.
Okay, that's lovely. I would be happy to contribute if anything is required from my side.
Sure,
Absolutely.
sure. We will connect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right.
Angela, please connect me to Najmuddin Faruqi, sir, to give vote of thanks. Is he
He's
there?
very much here.
Thank you, Ms. Ashi. But I think I have not left with any time. Otherwise, the so intellectual discourse, I don't find myself in a
But
position
sir,
to
I would
show
have
anything,
loved
say
that
anything.
this would have continued for the next 1 hour.
No, that's right. So I have to finish. I have to just convey my vote of thanks, nothing more. I can just quote one दो शेर उर्दू में सुना दूं
जी, जी,
तो
बिल्कुल।
जो हमारे मेहमानों के लिए उनकी नजर कर रहे हैं और मौलाना आजाद की शख्सियत की अक्कासी करते हैं 2 अशार। ये बहुत आसान है, आप लोग समझ जाएंगे, आसान उर्दू में है। चमन चमन ही नहीं जिसके गोशे गोशे में, चमन चमन ही नहीं जिसके गोशे गोशे में, कहीं बहार ना आए कहीं बहार आए। एक तो शेर डेमोक्रेसी पे है। दूसरा है निशाने मंजिले जाना मिले मिले न मिले, निशाने मंजिले जाना मिले मिले न मिले, मजे की चीज है ये ज़ौक़े जुस्तजू मेरा। क्योंकि वो हमारे मौलाना आजाद पार्टीशन की वजह से बाद में बहुत ज़्यादा डिस्टर्ब हो गए थे। सो आई कन्वे माई हार्टफेल्ट थैंक्स टू our distinguished guests, General Jamiluddin Shah, Dr. Khwaja Shahid Sahab, Padam Shri Professor Akhtarul Wase Sahab, Dr. Syed Mohammad Ilyas Sahab, Miss Angela for conducting the program so nicely, Angela Khan for backing up, and all other participants who have spared their time, and for all our esteemed guests. I thank them once again for sparing their precious moment, and they've given so nice insight and such on the personality of excellence, par excellence. They have given fantastic knowledge to us. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Lovely.
Thank you so much, sir.
That's great.
Thank you.